Alexis and Ava have never been a duo to back down from a mystery, especially when the stakes involve innocent lives and buried histories. They took it upon themselves to trace the elusive past of Delilah, following her ghostly footsteps all the way to the bustling, unforgiving streets of New York City. What they found there was not just a clue, but a glaring red flag that completely shatters the narrative we have been fed. Deep inside the archives of the Apollo Art Gallery, hidden away from prying eyes, they unearthed a mysterious photograph. It was an image of Delilah, looking both radiant and terrified, standing side by side with none other than Ethan. This means that Ethan was never just a bystander in this tragedy. He was deeply embedded in Delilah's world long before the chaos erupted. The look in their eyes in that photograph, it speaks volumes of a shared secret, a bond forged in the fires of desperation. Armed with this undeniable photographic evidence, Alexis did what she does best. She went straight for the jugular. She cornered Ethan, demanding answers, her legal mind slicing through his usual charming deflections. The tension in that room must have been suffocating. Pressed against the wall and crumbling under the immense weight of Alexis's relentless interrogation, Ethan broke. But the confession he offered was not the one anyone anticipated. Ethan suddenly and shockingly admitted to being the biological father of baby Phoebe. He spun a tale of a man completely unprepared for the monumental responsibilities of fatherhood. He claimed that his fear and inadequacy drove him to make the heartbreaking decision to give Phoebe up, agreeing to a closed adoption so that Harrison and Brooklyn could provide the stable, loving home he never could. He looked Alexis dead in the eye and stated, with chilling finality, that he wanted absolutely no role in Phoebe's life. But if you ask me, that story is entirely too neat, too perfectly packaged to be the whole truth. Ethan is a survivor, a man who has navigated the treacherous waters of his family's legacy for years. For him to simply walk away from his own flesh and blood without a fight contradicts everything we know about his underlying loyalty. And clearly, Alexis and Ava felt the exact same way. They started noticing the glaring inconsistencies in his timeline, the nervous tics, the way he desperately tried to shut down any further investigation into Delilah's time in New York. We have to ask ourselves, what if Ethan was never running from fatherhood, but running from something far more sinister? It seems like Ethan had been secretly colluding with Apollo all along to bury Delilah's records, doing everything in his power to ensure that her true history remained locked in the dark. Alexis is not a woman who accepts half-truths, and her maternal instincts, combined with her legal prowess, pushed her to take drastic measures. She orchestrated a secret DNA test, quietly collecting the necessary samples to definitively prove or disprove Ethan's shocking claim. The agonizing wait for those results must have been pure torture, a ticking time bomb waiting to decimate the fragile peace Harrison and Brooklyn had built with their new daughter. When the results finally came back, they sent absolute shockwaves through the very core of the city. The medical document was clear, undeniable, and utterly devastating to Ethan's fabricated narrative. The DNA test confirmed that Ethan shares absolutely zero biological connection to baby Phoebe. He is not her father. He never was. No one expected that Ethan, a man known for his self-preservation, would construct such a massive, life-altering lie. When Alexis slammed those DNA results down in front of him, shattering his defensive walls, the real story finally bled out. Ethan was forced to confess the agonizing reality of his relationship with Delilah. Months before her tragic and untimely death, Delilah came to Ethan in a state of absolute terror. She was a woman hunted, a woman who knew her days were numbered. She begged Ethan, pleading for the life of her unborn child, asking him to protect her baby from the one person who should have loved her most, her real biological father. Delilah described a man of immense wealth, terrifying power, and boundless cruelty. A man who could manipulate the legal system, control the financial markets, and crush anyone who dared to stand in his way. Ethan realized that if the true identity of Phoebe's father was ever exposed, the child would become an immediate target. She would be swallowed whole by a world of corruption and violence, used as a pawn in a sick game of power. So Ethan made the ultimate sacrifice. He agreed to pose as the deadbeat dad, taking on the shame and the judgment of everyone, just to ensure that Phoebe would disappear into the safe, loving arms of Harrison and Brooklyn. He did not lie to save himself. He lied to save an innocent little girl from a monster. This changes our entire understanding of Ethan. He is not a coward. He is the final desperate shield standing between a helpless infant and a looming darkness. But the truth could be much more complex, because keeping a secret of this magnitude requires absolute silence from everyone involved, and silence is a very expensive commodity. This is where the narrative takes a sickening turn into greed and betrayal. Ethan thought he had Apollo contained. He thought the gallery and its secretive handlers would honor their arrangement to keep Delilah's past buried. But loyalty is an illusion when millions of dollars are on the table. It is highly likely that Apollo saw Delilah's hidden documents not as a tragedy, but as a highly lucrative asset. Apollo betrayed Ethan in the most devastating way possible. They reached out to a shadowy, unknown buyer and sold every single piece of evidence Delilah had left behind. In exchange for a massive, ungodly sum of money, Apollo handed over the photographs, the private diaries, and the legal documents that explicitly detailed Delilah's terrifying life. These documents contained the one thing Ethan had sacrificed his reputation to hide: Delilah's intention to publicly expose the biological father just before she met her horrific end. The fallout from Apollo's treachery was swift and brutal. The buyer was not just an interested party, he was the monster himself. A powerful, impeccably dressed man suddenly arrived in town, stepping off his private jet with the cold, calculated demeanor of an apex predator. He did not come to negotiate. He came to conquer. This man marched straight into the heart of the city, flanked by high-priced attorneys, and publicly declared himself the legal and biological guardian of baby Phoebe. He produced a mountain of pristine, legally binding documents that left the local authorities and the residents completely stunned. When Ethan saw this man's face, the blood must have drained from his body. He instantly recognized the terrifying figure from Delilah's frantic warnings. The nightmare had finally caught up to them. The sheer terror of this situation cannot be overstated. Brooklyn and Harrison, who have poured their entire hearts into loving and raising Phoebe, suddenly found themselves living in a waking nightmare. The sanctity of their home, usually an impenetrable fortress of wealth and security, was breached. Brooklyn and Harrison began noticing chilling signs that they were being watched. Unmarked cars idling outside the gates at all hours of the night. Strange clicks on their phone lines. Shadows moving in the gardens. Every single move they made, every time they took Phoebe for a walk, unseen eyes were tracking them. The psychological warfare had begun, designed to break their spirits before the legal battle even commenced. They are dealing with an adversary who does not respect boundaries, an adversary who views their massive family wealth as a minor inconvenience rather than a true obstacle. The mysterious man wasted absolutely no time. He officially filed for full custody, demanding that Phoebe be immediately removed from Harrison and Brooklyn's care. What followed was the declaration of a full-scale legal war. Alexis and Diane immediately joined forces, forming a formidable legal barricade to protect the child. They threw every motion, every injunction, and every legal loophole they could find at the court to stall the transfer of custody. Harrison, utilizing his law enforcement background, began desperately digging into the man's past, looking for any shred of evidence that could prove he is unfit to raise a child. But this man's records are spotless. They have been scrubbed clean by teams of fixers and corrupt officials. It seems like they are fighting a ghost, a phantom who controls the board while they are merely pieces in his game. While Alexis and Diane fought in the blinding lights of the courtroom, Ava operated in the shadows, doing what she does best, hunting for leverage. Ava knew that a woman as smart and desperate as Delilah would not rely solely on diaries and photographs. She would have an insurance policy. Ava's relentless digging led her to a highly secure, off-the-books safety deposit box hidden away in a forgotten bank. When Ava finally cracked that box open, she did not find money or jewels. She found something infinitely more valuable and infinitely more dangerous. She found a digital storage drive containing a final, secret video recorded by Delilah herself. The atmosphere in the room must have been ice cold when Ava pressed play. On that screen, Delilah appeared pale, exhausted, and acutely aware that she was running out of time. Her voice trembled, but her words were razor sharp. She looked directly into the camera and delivered a message that will undoubtedly change the course of history. Delilah explicitly stated that if anything were to happen to her, if she were to die under any suspicious or even seemingly accidental circumstances, the biological father of her child must be the prime suspect. She named him. She detailed his crimes. She exposed the terrifying reality that this man is not just a wealthy businessman, but a ruthless criminal mastermind who has secretly funded illegal underground operations across the eastern seaboard for decades. He is a man who eliminates his problems permanently. When that video was finally brought to the light, everyone stood paralyzed in sheer horror. The implications are staggering. Delilah did not just die. She was silenced. She was murdered to keep this man's empire intact. And now that very same man is demanding custody of the only remaining piece of Delilah's legacy. This means that Phoebe is not just a daughter to him. She is a loose end, a piece of property, or perhaps a pawn to secure a twisted bloodline. Ethan's desperate lies suddenly make perfect, horrifying sense. He knew the magnitude of the evil he was dealing with. He knew that if this man ever found Phoebe, he would drag her into a world of unimaginable darkness. The battle lines have been irrevocably drawn, and there is no turning back. By uncovering the truth, by watching that video, every single person involved has just painted a massive, glowing target on their own backs. Ethan, who thought he could outrun the past. Brooklyn and Harrison, who only wanted to give a child a loving home. Alexis, whose relentless pursuit of justice tore the lid off this conspiracy. And Ava, whose cunning instincts unearthed the smoking gun. They are all in the crosshairs of a syndicate that operates above the law. This man has unlimited resources, an army of loyal mercenaries, and absolutely nothing to lose. He will stop at nothing to bury the truth, and he will gladly bury anyone who stands in his way. We are standing on the precipice of one of the most violent and dangerous conflicts we have ever witnessed. The legal system cannot protect them. The police force might already be compromised by this man's endless wealth. They are entirely on their own, facing a titan of industry whose hands are soaked in blood. How do you fight an enemy who owns the very ground you stand on? Will Harrison be forced to cross the line and abandon his badge to protect his family? Will Ethan finally step out of the shadows and go to war for the child he swore to protect? And the most terrifying question of all could be, what if this powerful man already has someone on the inside, someone we trust, feeding him their every move? The clock is ticking, the shadows are closing in, and survival is no longer guaranteed.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.